H.R. 1508, the Travelers Gun Rights Act of 2024, is a simple and straightforward bill that allows active duty service members, their spouses, full-time RV travelers, and those without a permanent residence to legally purchase firearms with either a private mailbox or a post office box number. This bill is sponsored again by my friend from South Dakota, Representative Dusty Johnson, and is co-sponsored by several members with military members and full-time RV travelers in their districts. Spouses of American servicemen and women, particularly those with permanent residences other than where they are currently stationed, should have the ability to exercise their Second Amendment rights. However, under current law, the ATF mandates firearms buyers to list their legal physical residential address when purchasing a firearm, prohibiting the use of P.O. boxes and private mailboxes. This legislation will allow thousands of Americans in diverse living situations, including the spouses of active duty military personnel and RV residents, to exercise their constitutional rights to purchase and possess a firearm. For instance, the spouse of an active duty military member with a permanent address in their home state but stationed elsewhere would be lawfully eligible to purchase a firearm. Since 2020, around 1 million Americans have shifted to full-time RV living, a change that currently hinders their ability to purchase firearms due to their non-traditional residences. Supporters, including the National Shooting Sports Foundation, stress that using a P.O. box for mail, as thousands of Americans do, should not obstruct an individual's constitutional right to own a firearm. These Americans should not be denied their Second Amendment rights because they lack a permanent residence and have non-traditional living arrangements. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back. I'm going to respond to several of the statements that have been made today by both the ranking member as well as the gentlelady in support of her amendment. The ATF guidance only allows for the purchase of a firearm if the state the buyer is in recognizes a P.O. box as a lawful residence, but not all states recognize a P.O. box as a lawful residence. That also recognizes that there's no reason for a study because we haven't seen an explosion of the type of nefarious conduct as just relayed in those states that actually do recognize the P.O. box as a lawful residence. The firearms buyer must have an identification document issued by the state their P.O. box is in, and restricting the freedom of RV living and forcing spouses of U.S. military personnel to obtain new driver's licenses in every state they're stationed in is just not appropriate. Law enforcement officers can already track firearm purchases through NICS, credit card data, cell phone pings, and other techniques. This legislation will not make it more difficult for law enforcement personnel to locate firearms buyers. And in addition, in talking about other IDs and efforts to use straw purchasers and things like that, if someone fakes an ID and passes an NICS check to buy a firearm from for another person, they should face charges as a straw purchaser. Further, they should be prosecuted for lying on the ATF 4473. Instead of creating more laws, we should reinforce existing ones and hold criminals accountable. And finally, this legislation enables and codifies the ability of military personnel and their spouses, frequently relocated every 24 months, to exercise their Second Amendment rights by simplifying the process of purchasing firearms, despite challenges in establishing residency and obtaining new IDs under current ATF requirements. The fact is that this bill just merely codifies and clarifies existing ATF guidance. And finally, at a time when we're seeing rising crime and prosecutors refusing to prosecute, people need to be able to defend themselves. And there's probably nobody who's more vulnerable than those who live in the RV setting. I ask unanimous consent to submit 2 articles into the record. One is by the Washington Post from November 2018. It's entitled 1 Million American Lives in RVs, Meet the Modern Nomads. And then also the second one is from April 21, 2022, and it's about a bill to let modern nomads use P.O. boxes on ATF Form 4473. I will repeat what I said earlier, which is
without objection.
Thank you. Law enforcement officers can already track firearm purchases through NICS, credit card data, cell phone pings, and other techniques. This doesn't change that fact. This just merely allows the use of P.O. boxes to be used on the form so that these law-abiding citizens are able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. I realize that my colleagues on the other side do not like the Second Amendment and the protections that it provides, but as our courts have repeatedly held, it is as important as any one of the other Bill of Rights, the other natural rights that we have. It is important that we protect the individuals who don't live in the traditional settings where they have a permanent residence, but they still need to be able to protect themselves. And again, we've got prosecutors throughout many blue states who are refusing to prosecute, people need to be able to protect themselves.